The Princess with Long Golden Hairs.
Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there was a beautiful princess named Ella. She had long golden hair, sparkling blue eyes, and a smile that could light up the darkest night. Ella lived in a grand castle with her father, King Richard, and her mother, Queen Isabella. The castle was surrounded by lush green forests, rolling hills, and a sparkling blue river that flowed gently through the kingdom. Ella was loved by everyone in the kingdom because she was kind, generous, and always ready to help those in need. She would often visit the villages, bringing food and gifts to the poor and sick. The people adored her and would always look forward to her visits. Despite being a princess, Ella never thought herself better than anyone else. She treated everyone with kindness and respect, and her heart was pure and full of love. One sunny day, while Ella was walking in the forest, she heard a soft cry for help. Following the sound, she came across a little bird trapped in a thorny bush. The bird's wing was injured, and it couldn't fly. Ella gently freed the bird, took it back to the castle, and nursed it back to health. The bird, grateful for Ella's kindness, stayed by her side from that day on. Ella named the bird Pippin. As the years passed, Ella grew into a young woman. She became even more beautiful, and her kindness only grew. Many princes from far and wide came to the kingdom, hoping to win her heart. But Ella's heart belonged to someone she had never met. Since she was a little girl, Ella had dreams of a brave knight who would come and sweep her off her feet. She knew in her heart that this knight was out there somewhere, waiting to find her. One day, a terrible storm hit the kingdom. The wind howled, and the rain poured down in torrents. The river overflowed, flooding the villages and causing great distress to the people. King Richard and Queen Isabella were worried, and they called upon the kingdom's strongest and bravest knights to help. Among them was a young knight named Sir Henry. He was tall, with dark hair and piercing green eyes. He was known for his bravery and strength, and he had come from a distant land to offer his help. Sir Henry worked tirelessly to help the people of the kingdom. He built dams to stop the flooding, rescued those trapped by the rising waters, and brought food and supplies to those in need. Ella watched him from a distance, her heart fluttering with admiration. She had never seen such bravery and selflessness before. She felt a connection to Sir Henry, as if he was the knight from her dreams. After the storm had passed, the kingdom began to recover. Sir Henry was hailed as a hero, and the people celebrated his bravery. Ella knew she had to meet him. One evening, she invited Sir Henry to the castle for a banquet. As they sat together, Ella felt her heart race. She could see the kindness in his eyes, and she knew that he was the one she had been waiting for. Over the next few weeks, Ella and Sir Henry spent a lot of time together. They would go for long walks in the garden, ride horses through the countryside, and talk for hours. Ella told him about her dreams, and Sir Henry listened with rapt attention. He told her about his adventures and the places he had seen. They grew closer and closer, and soon, they fell in love. One day, as they were walking by the river, Sir Henry got down on one knee and took Ella's hand. "Princess Ella," he said, "from the moment I saw you, I knew you were the one for me. You are kind, brave, and beautiful. Will you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Ella's eyes filled with tears of joy. "Yes, Sir Henry," she said, "I will." The kingdom rejoiced at the news of their engagement. The wedding was a grand affair, with people from all over the kingdom coming to celebrate. Ella wore a stunning white gown, and Sir Henry looked dashing in his knight's armor. They exchanged vows and promised to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. As time went on, Ella and Sir Henry ruled the kingdom together. They were loved by their people, and their kingdom prospered under their kind and just rule. They had many adventures together, facing challenges and overcoming them with courage and love. And they lived happily ever after, their love story becoming a legend that would be told for generations to come. Ella's dreams had come true, and she had found her brave knight. Together, they showed that with love, kindness, and bravery, anything is possible.
Once upon a time, in a land far, far away, there was an enchanted kingdom named Lemuria. Lemuria was known for its lush green forests, sparkling blue lakes, and the majestic Mount Aurelia, which stood tall and proud at the center of the kingdom. The land was ruled by King Alaric and Queen Seraphina, who were beloved by their subjects for their wisdom, kindness, and fairness. They had a daughter, Princess Alara, who was as beautiful as she was brave. Princess Alara was not like the typical princesses of her time. While she loved her beautiful gowns and the grand balls at the palace, she also had a deep sense of adventure and a curiosity that often led her into the wildest parts of the kingdom. She spent her days exploring the forests, talking to animals, and learning about the plants and the magic that flowed through Lemuria. One fine spring morning, as the birds sang their cheerful songs and the flowers bloomed in vibrant colors, Princess Alara woke up with an unusual feeling. She felt a calling deep within her heart, urging her to visit the ancient temple of Eldoria, a mystical place known only to a few. Legend had it that the temple was built by the first wizards of Lemuria and held secrets that could change the fate of the kingdom. With a determined heart, Alara set off on her trusted horse, Luna, a magnificent white steed with a silver mane. She wore her favorite emerald green riding cloak and carried a small satchel filled with essentials. As she rode through the forest, she felt a sense of excitement and anticipation, knowing that this journey would be unlike any she had ever taken. After hours of riding through the dense forest, Alara arrived at the foot of Mount Aurelia. The path to the Temple of Eldoria was steep and treacherous, but she was not deterred. She tied Luna to a sturdy tree and began her ascent. The climb was challenging, but Alara's determination and courage saw her through. As she reached the temple, she was awestruck by its grandeur. The temple was made of ancient stone, with intricate carvings that told stories of the past. The entrance was guarded by two giant statues of griffins, their eyes seemingly watching her every move. Taking a deep breath, Alara stepped inside. The air inside the temple was cool and filled with the scent of ancient incense. As she walked through the dimly lit corridors, she felt a presence, as if the spirits of the wizards were watching her. She finally arrived at the inner sanctum, where a large, ornate pedestal stood. On the pedestal lay a glowing crystal, radiating a warm, golden light. Alara approached the crystal cautiously. As she touched it, she felt a surge of energy flow through her. In an instant, she was transported to a vision. She saw her kingdom, Lemuria, but it was not the peaceful and prosperous land she knew. Instead, it was under threat from a dark force that sought to engulf it in shadow. In the vision, she saw a powerful sorceress named Morgothra, who had been banished from Lemuria centuries ago. Morgothra had discovered a way to return and was amassing an army to conquer the kingdom. The vision showed Alara that the only way to stop Morgothra was to find the 3 lost relics of the ancients: the Sword of Light, the Shield of Hope, and the Amulet of Truth. As the vision faded, Alara knew what she had to do. She had to find the relics and stop Morgothra before it was too late. She also realized that she could not do it alone. She needed the help of her friends and the wisdom of her parents. With renewed determination, she made her way back to the palace. Back at the palace, Alara shared her vision with her parents. King Alaric and Queen Seraphina listened intently and knew that their daughter's vision was true. They called for the kingdom's bravest knights and wisest scholars to assist Alara in her quest. Among them were Sir Cedric, a loyal knight who had served the kingdom for years, and Lady Isabella, a scholar with vast knowledge of Lemuria's history and magic. Together, they formed a plan. They would split into 3 groups, each searching for one of the relics. Alara, accompanied by Sir Cedric and Lady Isabella, would search for the Sword of Light, which was said to be hidden in the crystal caves of Lumina. The journey to the crystal caves was long and perilous. They traveled through dense forests, crossed raging rivers, and climbed steep mountains. Along the way, they faced numerous challenges, including wild beasts and treacherous terrain. However, their determination and teamwork saw them through. Finally, they arrived at the entrance to the Crystal Caves. The entrance was guarded by a fierce dragon named Drakthur. The dragon was known to be a guardian of the cave and would only allow those with pure hearts to enter. Alara, Sir Cedric, and Lady Isabella approached the dragon with respect and courage. Alara spoke to Drakthur, explaining their quest and the threat to the kingdom. The dragon, sensing the sincerity and purity of their hearts, allowed them to enter the cave. Inside, they found the Sword of Light, its blade glowing with a radiant light that seemed to banish the darkness around them. With the Sword of Light in hand, they returned to the palace, where they were met with great celebration. The other groups also returned successfully, having found the Shield of Hope and the Amulet of Truth. With the 3 relics, they were ready to face Morgothra. The final battle took place on the plains of Aldoria. Morgothra, with her dark army, met the forces of Lemuria led by Princess Alara. The battle was fierce and seemed to last an eternity. However, with the power of the relics and the courage of the people of Lemuria, they managed to defeat Morgothra and banish her once again. Peace returned to Lemuria, and Princess Alara was hailed as a hero. She continued to explore the kingdom, always ready for new adventures and challenges. Her bravery and determination became a legend, inspiring generations to come. And so, the enchanted kingdom of Lemuria continued to thrive, with its people living in harmony and prosperity, guided by the wisdom and courage of their beloved Princess Alara. Once upon a time, in a kingdom nestled amidst rolling hills and verdant forests, there lived a noble king and queen. They longed for a child, and their wish was granted when the queen gave birth to a daughter as fair as snow, with lips as red as blood, and hair as black as ebony. They named her Snow White. Years passed, and the queen fell ill and passed away. The king, devastated by his loss, sought solace in his daughter, who grew into a kind and gentle young woman. However, the king remarried a vain and wicked queen, who possessed a magic mirror that she would consult daily, asking, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror always replied that the queen was the fairest, until one day, it declared that Snow White, now a young woman, had surpassed her in beauty. Consumed by jealousy, the wicked queen ordered her huntsmen to take Snow White into the forest and kill her. Unable to carry out such a heinous deed, the huntsman released Snow White, warning her to flee into the woods and never return. Lost and frightened, Snow White stumbled upon a cottage deep in the forest. Inside, she found everything small but neat and tidy, indicating it was inhabited. Tired and weary, she fell asleep on one of the small beds. The owners of the cottage were 7 dwarfs who worked in the mines nearby. When they returned home, they were surprised to find Snow White asleep in their bed. Upon hearing her story, they welcomed her into their home, moved by her kindness and beauty. Snow White, grateful for their hospitality, took on the role of caring for their home while the dwarfs worked during the day. Meanwhile, the wicked queen, unaware that Snow White was alive, continued to consult her mirror. Learning that Snow White still lived and was the fairest in the land, she concocted a plan to eliminate her rival. Disguising herself as an old peddler woman, the queen visited the cottage where Snow White lived with the dwarfs. She offered Snow White a poisoned apple, claiming it would grant wishes. Despite the dwarfs' warnings, Snow White succumbed to temptation and took a bite of the poisoned apple. The effect was immediate. She fell into a deep, death-like sleep. Heartbroken, the dwarfs placed her in a glass coffin, where she remained as if in eternal slumber. One day, a prince from a neighboring kingdom happened upon the glass coffin while riding through the forest. Struck by Snow White's beauty, he begged the dwarfs to let him take her coffin to his castle. Moved by his sincerity, they agreed. As the prince's servants carried the coffin, they stumbled, dislodging the piece of poisoned apple from Snow White's throat, breaking the curse. Snow White awoke to find herself in a grand castle, surrounded by the prince who had awoken her and his joyful subjects. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she accepted the prince's proposal of marriage. They were wed with great celebration, and Snow White forgave the wicked queen for her past deeds. However, the tale does not end there. The wicked queen, upon learning of Snow White's awakening and marriage to the prince, attended their wedding. But her envy and hatred consumed her so fiercely that she collapsed and died. Her reign of vanity and malice ended, and Snow White and her prince ruled the kingdom with compassion and wisdom, beloved by all who knew them. And so, Snow White's story became a legend, a testament to the power of kindness, resilience, and the enduring magic of true love in overcoming darkness and adversity. After their wedding, Snow White and the prince ruled their kingdom with wisdom and compassion. The dwarfs, who had grown fond of Snow White, visited the castle often, bringing gifts from their mines and sharing in the prosperity of the kingdom. Snow White, now a queen, continued to be beloved by all for her gentle nature and beauty, which seemed to radiate even brighter after her ordeal. As time passed, Snow White and the prince were blessed with children, filling the castle with laughter and joy. The dwarfs became honorary uncles, doting on the royal children and regaling them with stories of their adventures with Snow White in the forest. The kingdom flourished under their rule, known far and wide for its peace and prosperity. Yet, not all was entirely peaceful. The memory of the wicked queen haunted Snow White at times, a reminder of the darkness that had once threatened her happiness. She often wondered what had driven the queen to such extremes of jealousy and hatred. Despite the forgiveness she had extended, Snow White could not shake off the feeling that there was more to the story. One day, while exploring the castle's library, Snow White came across an ancient book that spoke of a powerful sorceress who had once wielded dark magic in the kingdom. Intrigued, Snow White delved deeper into the history of her land, uncovering secrets long buried and forgotten. She learned of a prophecy that foretold the rise of a queen whose beauty would be unmatched, but whose heart would be consumed by envy and pride. The sorceress, it was said, had cursed the queen with an insatiable desire for beauty and power, driving her to commit unspeakable acts in her quest to be the fairest in the land. Snow White realized that the wicked queen had been a victim of this curse, trapped in a cycle of jealousy and despair that had ultimately led to her downfall. Moved by compassion, Snow White sought out the sorceress who still lived in seclusion in the depths of the forest. With the help of the dwarfs and her loyal subjects, Snow White ventured into the heart of the forest, confronting the sorceress who had caused so much pain and suffering. In a heartfelt plea, Snow White asked the sorceress to break the curse that had plagued the kingdom for generations. Touched by Snow White's kindness and bravery, the sorceress agreed to lift the curse, restoring harmony and balance to the land. The dark magic that had clouded the hearts of many began to dissipate, replaced by a renewed sense of hope and unity. With the curse broken, Snow White and her kingdom entered a new era of prosperity and peace. The memory of the wicked queen faded into history, replaced by tales of Snow White's courage and compassion. She became known not only for her beauty, but also for her strength of character and her ability to bring people together. And so, the story of Snow White continued to be told for generations, a timeless tale of love, forgiveness, and the triumph of good over evil. Her legacy endured, inspiring countless others to find beauty not only in appearance, but also in the kindness and goodness that dwells within every heart. Cinderella. Once upon a time, in a distant kingdom, there lived a kind and beautiful young girl named Cinderella. She lived with her father, a wealthy merchant, who remarried to provide her with a mother and sisters. Her new stepmother brought two daughters, Drizella and Anastasia, who were as unpleasant and selfish as their mother. When Cinderella's father fell ill and passed away, her stepmother revealed her true nature. She turned Cinderella into a servant in her own home, forcing her to wear rags, sleep in the attic, and do all the household chores. Despite the cruel treatment, Cinderella remained kind and gentle, finding comfort in her animal friends. One day, news spread that the king was hosting a grand ball for the prince, who was of marrying age. All eligible young women in the kingdom were invited, and Cinderella dreamed of attending. However, her stepmother and stepsisters, driven by envy, forbade her from going and gave her a long list of chores to ensure she wouldn't have time to prepare. Determined, Cinderella found an old gown of her mother's and mended it with the help of her animal friends. When her stepmother and stepsisters saw her in the beautiful gown, they tore it to shreds, leaving Cinderella in tears. Despairing, she fled to the garden, where her fairy godmother appeared. With a wave of her wand, she transformed a pumpkin into a carriage, mice into horses, and Cinderella's rags into a stunning ball gown with glass slippers. She warned Cinderella that the spell would only last until midnight. At the ball, Cinderella dazzled everyone, including the prince. They spent the evening dancing and talking. As the clock struck midnight, Cinderella fled the palace, leaving behind one of her glass slippers. The prince, determined to find the girl who had captured his heart, searched the kingdom with the slipper. He declared he would marry the girl whose foot fit the slipper perfectly. When the prince arrived at Cinderella's home, her stepsisters tried on the slipper, but it didn't fit. Cinderella's stepmother locked her in the attic to prevent her from trying on the slipper. With the help of her animal friends, Cinderella escaped and presented herself to the prince. The slipper fit perfectly, and the prince recognized her as the girl from the ball. Overjoyed, he proposed, and Cinderella accepted. Cinderella and the prince were married in a grand ceremony attended by the entire kingdom. Her stepmother and stepsisters were astonished and humiliated by this turn of events. Cinderella, showing her kind heart, forgave them but chose to distance herself from their toxic influence. Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after, ruling the kingdom with kindness and wisdom. Cinderella's story became a beacon of hope, proving that kindness, resilience, and a bit of magic could overcome even the most difficult circumstances. And so, the tale of Cinderella, the girl who went from rags to royalty, was told for generations, inspiring countless others to believe in their dreams and the power of kindness. The Frog Prince and Princess. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful princess who lived in a beautiful palace. There was a lake surrounding the palace garden. The princess had a golden ball, and she loved to play with it. One day, while playing in the garden, the ball fell into the lake. Feeling very upset and helpless, the young lady started weeping loudly for dropping her favorite ball into the lake. Upon hearing her wail, a frog hopped out of the lake and asked, "Why are you crying, sweet princess?" She told him about her golden ball which fell into the water, and she did not know how to get it back. The frog quickly said, "I can help you to get your golden ball, but what will you give me in return?" The princess promised to give the frog anything that he desired. The frog immediately dived into the lake and fetched the ball for the young princess. Seeing her ball, the princess was very happy. The frog then reminded her about her promise. The princess asked him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The frog replied, "Well, I want to be your friend, eat from your golden plate, and sleep in your palace." However, the princess did not quite like his idea, but she agreed and rushed back to her palace. The next morning, the frog came to the palace and knocked on the door. The princess saw the frog, but she didn't open the door for him. He shouted from outside, "I have come to live with you in your palace, dear princess." Hearing this, the princess started crying and ran to her father. When the kind-hearted king heard about the promise, he told her gently, "A promise is a promise, and you must keep your word, my dear. You must allow the frog to stay with you in the palace." The princess was annoyed, but she had no other choice but to let the nasty frog stay with her. That evening the frog sat next to the princess and had dinner from her golden plate. Thereafter, he followed her to the bedroom and jumped into her bed to sleep on her pillow. Seeing this, the princess got furious and picked him up from her bed and threw him against the wall in disgust. Suddenly, the nasty frog turned into a handsome prince. He told the princess that he was actually under the spell of a vicious witch who had turned him into a frog. He was troubling her because he wanted someone to help him break the spell. Hearing this, the princess felt sorry for her misbehavior and fell in love with the prince instantly. Soon after, they got married and lived happily ever after.